Happy New Year. Let's do a quick sound check to make sure you can hear me. Can everyone hear me? Can you hear me? Thought we'd have some tea together today and talk about the new year. I know I have a spot on my nose. It won't go away. It's a cut from the cat. I just had someone inform me of a spot on my nose. I'm like, the cat actually scratched me. She's fun. I am super cold, as you can see by all my sweaters and big fluffy flower thing. When I was out earlier, this was happening. It's all the way down my head because I was just so cold. Getting used to new glasses, so I'm kind of like staring at the screen going, I wonder if it's better this way, or I wonder if it's better this way. All right. I'm going to read to you, and for those of you who have already read it, just bear with me because a lot of people didn't get a chance to listen to the messages that came across. Every year around this time, I do a yearly forecast for what I see for the year. And it's easier to read it and then talk about it and then answer your questions. And I'll be sort of letting the guides go from that as well and seeing what else comes up with what they want to talk about. If you have any questions about your thoughts, theories, concerns for the year, what you're feeling for the year, you have anything you want to share with me, let me know. And then we'll go into a Q&A. So Happy New Year. It's going to be an interesting year. One of the things I can tell you is that I do have a very powerful class coming up called The Magic of Crystals. So the magic of crystals, spiritual and medicinal uses, the top 5 rituals for spiritual uses, the top 5 rituals for magical uses, the top 5 rituals for medicinal healing uses. All of that stuff is coming up. How did druids and pagans use crystals in this way? So that's going to be a very detailed class that comes up on February the 6th at 1 p.m. You can find that one at PamelaAaralyn.com. Every registered attendee will get a recording that's downloadable for 30 days. All right. So that's what's coming up. Hold on a second. Let me get to what they wrote. Okay, so one of my guides came through and said the theme of the year, and they pretty much all agreed, is making your life more simple. The frequency for the year is how to live peacefully in simplicity, okay? It's all about minimalizing, whether that be stuff or thoughts in your head or anything that's really keeping you off of your own creative path, practically and spiritually. Will be something that needs to be kind of put in the background, or in some cases, it'll be a year for boundaries for friends and family, like kind of telling people, okay, this is the path I'm on, join me or get off of it. So unfortunately, it's a hard year for boundaries and more of them to come. Prepare for a good hot steeping tea of boundary mastery in 2022. Not even being sarcastic. It's a little hard with this theme this year, because if you want to be simple, but then the world is bombarding you with so much stuff, it's hard to tell people you love, hey, I need more simplicity. So that's the theme this year. Let's see. From the White Birch Druid. This is a druid that's been coming to me only during these times of the solstice. I had never talked to her before. She's incredible. She has this kind of this translucent skin, and then what appears to be hair, but it's not. It's like a part of her skull features that starts here and goes back down her head, like kind of like cornrows or something, or braids, but not braids. And they go all the way down her head back like this, and then out as if they are like antennae of some kind. So she's a very interesting druidic being, and I couldn't pronounce her name. So she would show up as a white birch tree and then transform into this being and then talk to me. That's been happening only since the solstice of this year. It's the first time I've met an elemental being that comes from trees that will actually talk to me on a regular basis, that I'm not just calling in to channel per se for someone, right? So the white birch druid has been a theme. And this is what she said. She said, "This is a time when you must act sincerely with a lot of inner trust. In this year, you must remember your obligations to your community." She means locally here, okay? To your community and to earth in your local communities. That was a big one. She wants us to strive to maintain more harmony with ourselves, with our loved ones, with our friends, family, and local community members, regardless of the challenges that arise, to learn to make home exactly where we are with our friends, family, neighbors, loved ones locally and under our own roof, she says. It's time for us to all focus on this individually and in the smaller collectives of our friends and families so that the earth cycles that are coming up can get a chance to calm down a little bit more. All right. And if we don't do that, there are unfortunately some consequences with earth changes that are coming that we will not be able to stop, she says, if we don't start this right now. So that was a very omen-like thing that I got from her that had me a little unsettled. And after I talked to her, I had 6 dreams for 6 nights straight about the earth changes coming up if we do not heed that particular advice from her. All right. She said, "Be composed, be reverent, do not speak unless absolutely necessary." She wants more quietude, more quiet moments, she states. She also said, "Earth needs you. Start now before nature grows intensely complex. Plant, harvest, can, rest, and do it all again." Enlightenment is about chopping the wood and bringing home the water, literally this year, she says. I did get a chance to ask her some questions about can we expect any certain things like more quarantines and things. And she said, unfortunately, yes, particularly in Canada and the United States, in France, in Germany. Um, these were some of the places, as well as in certain parts of China. And the bigger cities will be the first to go down this year. So there will be several worldwide quarantines this year. She also wants us not to get upset about that, but to use that as a time to depend upon ourselves, our families, and under our own roofs, what we can do for ourselves and our local communities, growing closer to the land and becoming more interdependent with each other, locally and privately and personally. That's ourselves, our bodies, our friends, our family, our local communities. The whole mindset of kind of closing your garage door, pulling your cars in, closing your garage door, and rolling up your red carpet, and then going going within yourself and shutting everyone else out. That will not be a really great option for yourselves this year or for Earth and the direction that Earth's going. We're going to need to come together a lot this year. There are a set of mini disasters, is what she calls them, coming our way. Most of them have to do with more fires. The blizzards this year are already colder in the areas that they're here. They're lasting longer. There will be unusual things during the winter that you don't expect. And there will be even more unusual things during the spring that you do expect, like the flooding season this year for my area of the world out in the West is tremendously bad. The monsoon season, my guides are telling me, is going to be an absolute disaster. So we need to prepare for certain things, stock up your food closets, prepare for fires, floods, monsoons. Earthquake season this year is particularly bad, but volcano season is worse. So there will be seasons for this, and then it'll stop. And right when you heal the lens, it's almost as if it's preparing it. The lava flows, the grass fires that turn into these huge national forest disasters. That's preparing Earth for something. So there are reasons for that as well. All right. So it would be a good idea if you live in a city to do your windowsill gardening and your terrace gardening. It would be a good idea to learn to can this year. It would be a good idea to not just talk about it, but to do it. All right. So that's the hard news. From Savine, who calls herself the solstice druid. Um, I really, really love this druid. And when she talks to me, she's always really clear. She said, seek clarity of awareness this year. Ask for it. Inquire for it in your rituals. Inquire in your meditations. Ask many more questions, not necessarily to your governments, for they are still lying, but ask yourselves. She said, I want you to seek clarity of awareness and then stay in that awareness and don't be so easily distracted by other people's opinions, projections, and their own ideas, concepts, and their awareness. You're on a path where you can have a different level of awareness and still work together for local communities and Earth. All right. You can still love each other and very much disagree, she says. She also said humanity faces a lot of obstacles in 2022, but that they can be overcome by careful preparations of your body, your mind, and of land use. So now's a great time if you haven't, start saving to buy a home. You still have many, many more years before you absolutely need to, but start saving, start putting some things aside for that. All right. Keep a clear mind, remain resolute in your creative endeavors, she advises. Now's the time to start a business. Now's the time to do something new in a business that you already have. Now's the time to become more independent from the wheel. She calls it the corporate wheel, of pain, the wheel of pain, she calls it. So it might be time to become self-employed people. This is what COVID was about. This was the overall theme of why it happened, is so that we could become more independent. So now's a really good time. All right. She said, compromise where necessary with your friends and family, but do not let go of your dreams creatively. Seek to make your vision a reality this year creatively. Do not gloat if your vision overcomes those of others or if they disagree. This is the time to recognize who's on your journey and who will walk by your side and who won't. And don't be so fast to shut doors, but don't be so fast to keep them open when they need closed in friendships. It's okay to go into the new year with this you that you know is really you, as opposed to just trying to be the you that other people want you to be this year. Sabine also said, be confident that the changes coming right now, particularly the environmental ones, and even the lockdowns that she is predicting this year, lead to greater peace. Remember, peace is a daily individual choice that requires discipline on your behalf individually. She said, and this I felt was a big warning, do not follow technological advances to seek peace. Let it come to you through the old ways. That was a big one. She wants me to repeat that. Do not follow the technological advances that are offering you peace. Let it come to you through you, and let it come to you through the old ritual ways. Okay, so the old teachings, stick to that. Okay. There are all these new apps coming out this year. There's Meta. There's all kind of stuff that's kind of freaking the druids out when I talk to them this year. And when I brought that up to her, she was like, her eyes got very big, and she's like, you need that on your face to meditate. No, that's not going in a great direction for humanity. So don't get caught up in these meditation shortcuts, these shortcuts to spirituality. All right. From the trees, when I talked to the collective of the trees, they wanted us to get out of the vicious cycle of survival mentality and doing what you need to survive. So many people go about this. If I don't do this, my business won't survive. If I don't do that, I won't be able to pay my rent or mortgage or bills. And she said she would rather have us minimalize our stuff that we think we need than keep a job that has survival. She calls it the wheel of pain, this wheel of go to work at this time and go home at this time just to survive. That is the wheel that's breaking over the course of the next few years, not just this one. And that's why COVID happened, is because we asked for some reprioritization of our independent creative goals and our interdependence upon ourselves and each other. All right. So she wanted us to reprioritize in this way. She says, get more creative, think outside of the box. If you are already self-employed, now's the time to get even more outside of the box of what you think works. And that's for all of us. She said, work hard, play hard, rest well. Intermittent fasting as often as possible will prepare the body for the same changes that the earth cycles will bring this year, which are quite a few changes, she says. She said we must prioritize ourselves and to reprioritize what we think is important versus what we told ourselves is important because of the survival wheel. So that's something to keep in mind as well. She said, keep in mind also, self-love doesn't mean you come first. It means everyone comes first, even the plants and the animals. And she leaves us with a question about that. She said, are you living in a way that you come first more than your spouse, your children, your neighbors, or the earth itself? This must change before Gaia does it for you. And if she does do it this year, it will be swiftly and powerfully in spurts of natural disasters. Again, the fires, the volcanoes, the earthquakes, monsoon seasons will be ridiculous in the West this year, a lot of flooding. So we want to make sure that we're living with the natural cycles of Earth, not against it. All right. Okay. What else? From Halal, one of my main guides, this was his message for the year. Let go of things. Halal would love for me to live like a minimalist. Now, keep in mind, I have 4 kids. So that's like really hard. But sometimes you just have to be the parent and sit down and talk to your kids and just be like, hey, you got too much stuff. Let's give it away. Let's do the whole giveaway, throw away, or keep pile for a year. And what would happen if we all chose to do that at least once a month throughout 2022? Wouldn't our lives change significantly? So that was just some simple advice from Halal. He said, let go of things. Try to lead more of a minimalist lifestyle. He also said, prioritize elements. Now, he means of nature, wind, our breath, earth, fire, water, the light is an element. Prioritize elements instead and let their magic imbue you with life. Eat only life, not death, and imbue your soul with the choice of love always. So he says to me now that's not fluffy advice. The choice of love always. If you are thinking about something that's causing you to resent someone, if you're judging yourself right now, choose again and choose to find a way to think upon yourself or that person in love, no matter how hard it is. Imbuing your thoughts with this love right now will be much more easily accomplished if you have a daily spiritual practice. Now, that's something that the Druids taught me this year is to work in threes. So what that means is 30 seconds, 3 minutes, 30 minutes, 33 minutes, 3 hours. Not many of us have that these days. If it's just something as simple as you cast a circle around yourself in your mind, light a white candle, and say the Druid's prayer, and that practice takes 30 seconds to 3 minutes. Those are the threes. And then perhaps later you may or may not get into a space for different practice, but how you begin your day with a practice that is from the threes, all right? 3 seconds, 3 minutes, 33 minutes, something like that would be something that makes your entire day auspicious. And when you can do that, you're imbuing your days and your thoughts with love because you started it that way in your sacred circle. All right. So that was some advice from some of the guides there. Remember, Halal says, downsize your closet, your finances and debts, your websites, your homes, and your food selections and food pantries. Control yourself this year. This is the year of self-control. Take only what you need from earth, and she will be plentiful to you, your children, and your children's children. Think about threes, 3 generations ahead. Are you living in a way that is constructive towards that, is what he's asking. The advice from Lilith this year, she said, remember, you've been asking for freedom since 2020, and simplicity is your freedom this year. Freedom doesn't lie in how much money you make or do not. This is not your safety. This is not your freedom. Freedom lies in your ability to support yourself from Earth herself. Let go of the mad rush to get somewhere. After all, once you get there, then what? Will you madly rush off to the next goal and then call this freedom? Be conscious. Speak more slowly. Breathe slowly. Eat and drink more slowly. Get up and down from sitting and resting more slowly. Walk slowly. Talk slowly. And set some time for quietude in your homes, in your minds, and in your daily lives. All right. That's pretty much the advice for the year. I open the floor to questions now. And let's drink some tea and go into some questions. David Collins says, this year I'm not going to be eating any meat. Okay, make sure you supplement. It's hard to get iron in particular from plant products. It doesn't absorb as easily for about half of the population right now. Many doctors will agree with me on that. And they would even say more than half the population possibly, but that's just my intuitive response. That's where I get that half the population. When I look at the collective, it says about half the population cannot absorb iron from plant products. They can absorb up to 3% of it. Iron is hard to absorb no matter what. So just make sure you're supplementing, okay? Okay, if you've already written down a question, just go ahead and copy and paste it again. I'm looking at the chat now. Oh my gosh, that's a broad spectrum question from Jimagenis. Regarding Europe, that's hard for me to pare down because there's a lot going on in Europe this year. And from what I can see, I'm a seer. For those of you who don't know, I get a lot of prophecy-based visions, both individually and collectively. So around this time of the year is when I sit and I kind of start to get these visions for the year. And when I look at Europe, I just get way too much going on. So what you can do is, ask me a little bit more specifically because Europe is huge. Yeah. What I did see in Europe was a lot more snowfall than usual, a lot more flooding than usual. I didn't see so much insofar as volcanoes or fires or earthquakes this year, but a lot of flooding, blizzards, whiteouts is what I would call that, when you get like so much ice and snow that it just like completely knocks your electricity out for several days on end, things like that. I saw some dangerous glaciers coming up this year. So people that are out there snowing and things, you really need to be aware if you're in Europe right now. Would it be beneficial to move somewhere more simplified? Oh my gosh, Amber, I've had that question for years, because that's one of the first things that America often does. We're like, well, of course, we feel this call for simplification, but then simultaneously, you need an internet we still need that to be able to do a small business these days. So it's something to consider is wherever you do move, are you close enough? Are you at least within an hour and a half's distance of an internet company, or do you have some sort of option for yourselves with that? Okay. Because Elon Musk is not coming out with that thing he's been talking about for the past few years where everybody gets puts all the phone companies out of business because they all have this satellite internet. What was he calling that? Well, it's not in 2022. I'm not seeing that happen anytime soon. All right. Sadly enough, because then it would give us the ability to pretty much live wherever we want, right? But I have those questions as well. And every time I think about moving too far away, my inner guidance is like, yes and no. You need to be, you guys aren't ready to plant and grow and harvest and can and store your own food yet. So unless you're healthy enough, you know what you're doing, You are a good farmer. You know a lot about plant medicine. It might not also be a good idea for you to be moving in the middle of nowhere right now. So maybe you're like me and you're kind of in the middle way. You're kind of in between all of that. Like you know what you're doing just on the basic level where you're confident you can feed your family. Okay, well, prove it. Start a garden in your own yard, right there in suburbia. Do what you can. I'm looking at questions. Give me a second. Do I think Assange will come back to Australia in 2022? Please pardon my ignorance, but I don't know what that is. There are some things that are so deep into a dark governmental force that is absolutely out of my frequency. So then I don't even see it in the overall predictions because it's not at my unique frequency level. And all the people that typically are following my work are also in this place where uh, certain things just aren't at their frequency. So you don't manifest it for yourself. Therefore, it doesn't come across in your predictions or prophecies. It's just not in your world. Like Dolores is a good example of that. Um, she she did not see what the things of the air that people were concerned about at that time. What was it? The contrails and chemtrails. Chemtrails. She was like, chemtrails are not in my frequency. They're not in my environment. And that wasn't where her frequency was. So she literally could not be a part of it because her frequency was in a very different place than that. Do you guys understand? So this must be something that is like that for me. But you can try to explain it to me and I'll try to understand it. But if it's not at my frequency, I may not. Does anybody know what that is? This Assange thing that he's talking about? When will COVID end? Not this year and not next year. Yeah, you got a while with this. You see, this is the thing about that. We asked for a big change, and we asked at such a collective level with such power that we wanted the change to be independent, and this is what COVID's doing. It's giving us this opportunity to be independent of the governments and interdependent among each other. And that's going to take some time because people wanted that. But then when their jobs ended, they were like, well, how am I supposed to survive? And the universe is like, go become self-employed, but you didn't know how. So you're still in this learning curve and we need COVID during the learning curve. That's what's going on with the collective for why it's still here. That's the positive side of things. All right. Hold on, let's see. Am I familiar with Nostradamus? Of course. Will people die from the vaccine? Yes. Yeah. Plenty will. And of course, that won't be evidenced appropriately. I can't talk about that without getting my YouTube channel in great jeopardy. But plenty will also die from the disease itself, just as many. So this is a point of where is your point of frequency of fear? I nothing the vaccine. I have a lot more fear of COVID than I do the vaccine. So if I wanted to go get the vaccine right now, I could get it and absolutely nothing would happen to me. All right. And do you nothing the vaccine and you happen to want to travel? Okay. Make sure on all levels of consciousness, what you're aware of and the deeper iceberg levels of beneath the surface down here. Where are you subconsciously with it? Because if you're afraid of it and you take it, problems happen. Right. But it's the same with COVID. So many people were afraid of it and then they didn't know and then they got it and they died. Right? Anti-vaccine, and then suddenly they pass. There's so many lessons for so many of us in this, and this does not matter on what side of the fence you fall on. Whether you believe in the vaccine or not, whether you believe COVID is real or not, you're going to be seeing more people dying from it. And in ways that you can't blame the vaccine if they're unvaccinated, right? And you're going to see more people dying from the vaccine in ways that you can't blame COVID. So there's a lot going on. And there's so little that we know. And then suddenly we've all become medical experts, right? Right? Um, and this doesn't, take from the points that you need to be aware of big pharma and not so caught up in them. You need to trust your own instincts on this, right? But it's individual. It's not COVID's bad for everyone and we should all wear masks. And it's not, we should all take vaccines or we're going to die from COVID. It's individual. All right. So where are you in your unique individual beliefs will tell you how you will be affected by either. All right. How do we reduce electromagnetic pollution and effects of Wi-Fi in the home? Crystals can be programmed to do that for you. We can cover that in the upcoming crystal class if you guys want. That would be a big question for you to ask there. But it's actually pretty easy to do. Number one, turn it off. Right? But number two, there are certain crystals that are really good at that if you program them appropriately in the right way with sunlight is the way you do that. Right? In the certain times of the sun and moon cycles, you can use sunlight to become a technological energy that can program your crystals to literally build a shield around such devices. Will corruption be ending? Nowhere near. We live in a beautiful world, and sometimes it's corrupt and sometimes it's peaceful. Sometimes it's beautiful and sometimes it's horrendous. This is the nature of a dualistic environment. It's not ending in our lifetimes. And it's good to expect that that's not ending. If we wanted to just live in a fifth dimensional environment, we wouldn't have bodies. But it is an individual choice of choosing to create an uncorrupt environment in your head, in your heart, in your body, and in your homes. And when that happens, you will see less corruption from the external world. All right. So that is a responsible choice that each of us can make to choose what we see. And when we don't like what we see, to be the change that we seek. All right. That's a personal responsibility at this point. We can't just expect the aliens to come do it for us. We are the aliens in this environment. And if you don't believe that, look at any of the insects or animals around you, look at Earth and just ask you what's different. You're the only thing different. We are the most corrupt, violent species that I've ever seen in any time, in any era. This is the era of the most corruption that I've ever seen. And why? It's coming from us. Who's going to change that? Us. We're going to have to get so sick of the corruption that we've allowed and individually begin to change our lives until we are independent of these systems and interdependent upon each other instead. That's what will change corruption. Let's see. Any thoughts on how to prepare children and teens for what's to come? Oh my gosh, they're so caught up, aren't they? In technology in particular. Uh, this person says, I've been holding back, but they see our preparedness, such as canning and gardening. I just don't want to add fear to the household. Um, the way that you choose to talk to your children, you can just share with them the research that is associated with what they're currently doing that is not natural. Um, and just like the research on where that's going. And we can only go so far. I know there are times when I'm like, okay, the internet's going off today. There are times when I'm like, okay, we're going somewhere and you're all going. I don't care if where we're going has zero internet, we're all going. So there will be times when we need to provide the opportunity and be the lead, to be the example of that. And then there'll be times when we have to teach our children tolerance and discipline and all those sorts of things. All that's coming up over the course of the next several years. So it's you can prepare them in stages is the best way that I can describe that to you, is to try to prepare them in stages. Don't throw it at them all at once. Children don't do well with those kind of changes, but a little bit at a time. Will you be resuming the course of love? Yeah. Yeah, actually been taking some time off because I rarely do. And it was just, to spend some time with my family. So this year I had a whole week off, and then the week before that I didn't have time to do it at all. So it gets a little bit hard to like get up and do all that like every single morning, like right after the kids go to school or right before the kids go to school, because when you have 4 kids to get to school, it can be a bit of a time strain to get up and do YouTube. um, Hold on, I'm just scrolling through your questions. Someone says, I'm thinking about getting land and buying this tiny house. Okay. Tiny houses, if you're single, it's a great idea. Parents, we both know it's not going to work. Right? How tiny of a house we're talking about, right? It's not good for everybody, but if you're in that, world and you don't have kids, or if your kids are out of the house, it's a great idea. But before you buy land and buy a tiny house and start thinking about becoming interdependent, take a class or two. Educate yourself. Learn kind of the lifestyle changes that will entail before you just jump right in, because it can be a big change. Make sure you're physically capable of growing your own food. Make sure you're physically capable of the land work, when you have land, the work that it takes to maintain that land and to be a good steward of that land. Okay, Druidry is the best way to get into all of that. I think we've already asked this one. Pandemic is getting worse, not better. Sorry to say it. Not ending this year, not ending anytime soon for that matter. Let's see. Any frequency to keep in tune with Earth or stay balanced and well-being? I find that Earth is a vibrational being. So the more you can literally plant, keep your hands in the soil, become a steward of your own land by gardening, the more you can add more plants to your home and to your properties of any kind. Even just a few house plants makes a huge difference. As many house plants as possible. If I had more light in my house, it would be full right now of house plants, right? So grow some herbs. There's nothing like getting your herbs from a sustainable source and or growing them your own, and then making your own medicinal teas, tinctures, balms, and salves. I will be going into a plant medicine program this year. If you want to join it, they're going to be 3-month programs at a time. We're meeting twice a week for plant medicine. So this just the time of the year to be learning all the druidic practices as well for that reason. So a lot of people begin to awaken in their spirituality, and then they feel like having a certain practice to connect with Earth is great. And it can be, however, when your life becomes your practice, when your gardening becomes your practice, when your daily walks become practice, and your intentional breathing during those walks outside in nature, when that becomes your practice, when swimming becomes a practice. Do you see what I'm saying? If you want to get more in tune with Earth, you need to bring more Earth inside of your homes and be out yourself more into the Earth environment, right? So those are just practical ways. Anything in the collective regarding the state of Georgia? Georgia has some floods this year closer to the Tennessee border. North Georgia, particularly like in the mountains above and around Atlanta. What do you call those? That mountain range is a very sacred place. And they seem to have a little bubble of protection around them. Granted, I won't move there because, well, I'm a bisexual woman, and I won't move to any place where there's going to be like segregation, because I don't want to expose my family to that. Amber asks, I heard that this year is like a new relationship year. Is that true? All of the guides that I speak with have agreed that it's a year of a better relationship with yourselves and a year of reevaluation of old relationships to open doors for new ones. So I would say yes to that. Okay. Someone's trying to tell me what Assange or something is, Julian Assange, but I don't follow other people's work for a reason. Unless it's gonna affect the collective in a big, big, big way, I don't tend to really follow it much, and even then, I'm told to stay in my own work and with my own channeling so that I can be a clear conduit for Earth. So I don't know who that is, I'm sorry. It's whistleblower, yeah, they have their own frequencies, and I'm not in that vibration, so I typically won't know what it is. Someone says, Julian Assange, Australian, sir, currently held in Guantanamo Bay for exposing U.S. war crime. Oh, he's being held. Yeah. That gets people's attention for the corruption in our government, and a lot of people need to be aware of the corruption in our government. I'm surprised people weren't aware. All these things came out this year, the past 2 years, of how corrupt our government was, and people are like, "Do you know about that?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, how could you not?" Of course, we know about it. I am channeling Metatron this month, and you're welcome to join me on Patreon for that. And I'm sure that the Jesus advice will come out in the upcoming Course of Love. I did recently also channel Jesus just yesterday with Lightworkers 613, so we do that quite a bit. Let's see. Hold on, just scrolling through your questions and trying to catch up. He's a large part of the shadow being integrated. Okay, that's good. Not really my vibe though. I like to become aware of it, but I don't like to pull it into myself because my vibration on this planet is for something different. Any input on Brazil, Florida? Florida is strangely okay. It does have a bad hurricane in the season this year, but bad, in my opinion, is never bad for Florida's opinion. The last time I said Florida was going to have a bad hurricane, they did. And we were able collectively to do a group meditation and minimalize that by 60%, and then it calmed down. So there's always things that we can do in that way if that were to come up for Florida again. We have a lot of our loved ones there, and it would be, in my heart to help them, and I'm sure it would yours as well, right? So I feel that could be changed. What else did you ask about Florida? And Brazil? Brazil has some massive earth changes this year, um, involving earthquakes and dry land drought, in certain places where it's very, very difficult. So there, and you don't expect that. It's weird. You wouldn't expect Brazil to be having dry land right now. It's just not something the climate scientists would be observing. But I'm telling you, it's going to happen. That they're going to have a huge drought this year. So stock your food, Brazil. About crystals and diffusing toxicity, it's not really on par with our theme today, but like I said, I do have a big, long crystal class coming up on February the 6th. You guys can check that out on my website. I don't know, JMS. That's 2024, and we're talking about 2022, during which time our president will still be alive in the US. Gingerbread Man says, I don't know if you've heard of med beds. If you have, are there any news on them? Can you explain to me what that is? I have heard of it, but it's been a long time, and I do see visions, and then sometimes I can't, place what I'm seeing with the name of the device. So, can you tell me, is it a crystal bed? Is it a bed of light? Because I do see a lot coming this year for people who have invested in these light beds. I don't know what they are, but it's like there's a bunch of light in the bed, and I have had dreams about that for this year being very healing, um, and helping in, the fight against some of the stuff going into our systems from certain medicines. Sorry, guys, I gotta watch my channel. So many people are getting canceled and will continue to get canceled this year. Do crystals help with infections? If they're programmed that way, they can help with infections and inflammation. And that's one of the reasons why I've chosen to begin some long, specific, crystal classes for crystal medicine because of that, because it's needed right now. The country's getting sicker, not better. Sorry to say. And and I can't really say, it's like so 50-50 in the why. Some people will say it's so because of vaccines, and for that collective, they make it so. Some people say it's because of COVID, and for that collective, we make it so. Do you see how this is going? Be careful where you're placing your fears. Teresa, that might be something that would be good for you to join the crystal class for that. Or one of my upcoming plant medicine classes. I'd have to know a lot more about the situation to just generally read into that. I'd hate to not give that enough of my time, you know? Um, Dawn says, "My sons know all about gardening and storing. I always had a huge garden when they were children. Good thing for everyone to learn." Yeah. Yeah, buy local, support local, absolutely. What's the best advice you can offer for people who are different from others, like being a darker personality without meaning to be? Send light. And how important is it for you to be right? When you ask yourself that question and you love someone who has a lot of negativity, all right, sometimes you just go about, listening and being there for them, and then keeping your light and not letting their negativity affect your light, all right? And that's sometimes just the best thing that you can do, is just understand that they're gonna be tossing all sorts of negativity in your direction, and if you love them, the best thing you can do is just say, "Hey, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm wrong. Thank you, I'll think about it. I'll take that into consideration." But you won't. You're gonna keep your light, and you're gonna hold true to your own, creative desires anyway, but sometimes it's just best to keep the peace because, well, for someone who's set in a negative mindset, you can't change that except by proving them that the light will win out in the situation, and you can only do that by doing that, not by just talking about it. You know what I mean? Um, what makes white blood count high? Infection. Infection or virus. Anything your body is fighting off. Are med beds coming? I don't know what they are, but I'm having a lot of dreams about beds with light in them, light sources. So if you can tell me more about what that is, I can look at my vision and tell you if it lines up with what I'm seeing. That's the best I could do to answer that question. Do trees in people's yards also have druidry entity in them? It's hard to get the druid entity out of the trees. I recently did, but it was out of a lot of personal practice. All right. So if you want to be in touch with druid practices, go do them. Go do them. Draw a circle around yourself and go into the sacred grove within yourself and be reborn there into yourself and ask to meet the druids in those trees. Convene with a tree. Ask it yourself. It's not really yes or no. A lot of the trees have kind of sleeping druid entities in them, or perhaps the entity represents the collective of a certain tree. Like in my white birch druid, that guide is a collective guide for the birch trees. Palladian said it will end beginning 2023. Yeah, well, come back to me in 2023 and let me know how that's working for that prediction. That's not what my guides are saying. So I'll have to respectfully disagree with whoever is filtering that through for that channel. I don't want to lie to you. If I'm seeing something, if it's bad, I tell you. If it's good, I tell you. But I'm not going to give you hope that's not there in prophecy. It's unethical. Heart Maria says, remember, besides canning, people can get a dehydrator. Yes. I haven't even pulled out my dehydrator. I've been given one and I don't know what to do with it. I'm like, well, does it plug into the wall? What am I going to happen when you can't plug it into the wall? Like, I have questions about that. Right. I don't know a lot about dehydrators, but I do have one. Thankfully, someone donated one to me. Yeah, we are doing a lot of freezer storage with food, though. That was definitely, something we felt we should do this year. And canning, well, it's coming up thanks to you. I do remember vaguely how to do it because we grew up that way. We grew up with a massive garden and then canning during harvesting and canning, and then planting and seeding all over again. America's Pluto return, any insight? I am not an astrologer. I know some really good astrologers, but yeah. There's a guy in my the Pamela Aaralyn official Facebook community. If you go in there, you can talk to him, and he typically will put up like a quarterly thing about what's going on, and he's really good. He's an older guy, probably in his 60s or so, and he is an incredible astrologer. I did a YouTube with him once where he read my chart and I put it up. Do you guys remember him? He's really good. Altazar is his name. Altazar, yes. Such an unusual name that I couldn't remember there for a while. Any Arcturian messages feel strong? I'm not a standard Arcturian channel. I'm more of a Lyran feline channel, and the Lyran collective, if I channel galactic stuff. So no, not this year. I haven't had any Arcturians coming yet, but it's early on. Who knows? Did Jesus ever mention his return in any work you've done with him? No. He says that we are the Christ consciousness and that we are our saviors, and there's no need for a return of him because we are him and we are his children. Yep, that's on us. How will Romania fare this year? Cold. There's some whiteouts. There's some hard times with that. As typical for Romania, there are some drops coming up that aren't expected. It's almost as if things don't unfreeze in enough time to get a good crop. So that's harder than usual. But by the time Romania does get a good crop, they will be fine and they'll recover from it within that same year in 2022. But it will be an initial difficult season. Is Spain going to have fires and droughts this year? Yes, they will have more droughts than fires, but they do have one very bad fire, and they do have one very bad earthquake that's unexpected. It's about 7.2. That would be what I would consider a bad one. Oh, and the floods. Oh my gosh, there are certain areas of both Spain and Italy that are flooding like mad even right now and will continue. So there are 4 major floods, um, coming up this year for those areas. Do you see any, issues with loss of electricity in the USA? Intermittently this year, yeah, intermittently from anywhere from 1 to 7 days at a time in certain areas, depending upon what natural disaster is going on and where. Um, Mel Willis says, "I live in Oregon. We've had a few tough years. Do you know of anything that's coming?" More fires. Yeah. Will the pandemic ever end? Yes, but not now and not soon. Any input about Germany? Unfortunately, more floods, and some freezing, some whiteouts. I hear free power exists that we can put in our homes. Yeah, and there will be more technologies that come out for that, that go in conjunction with some of the systems that are already in our homes to work as a backup when we have those problems. So keep your eyes open for new technology that will help prevent that. Um, okay, Gingerbread Man says, I'm pretty sure med beds use holographic light and sound to heal and lower biological age. Yeah. What I was seeing, there are a couple different things. I was seeing a bed that mainly had red light. So there's 2 different technologies that I had dreams about. One had red light and it had sound. And I know I've used it before, so I know it's already out there. I used it once. It does things that we could already do if we knew how to duplicate those specific sine waves that it gives us. So that's a vibrational healing, it's vibrational medicine. And then there was another bed that I saw that had like an array of lights, and they were all within different color spectrums as well. Is karma becoming more immediate? Yes, but so is dharma. Because dharma is now. You can't get more immediate than where you already are if you want to change karma. What is going to happen with US currency? Overall this year, not so much. Good news there. We had some good news for once, not so much. Cryptocurrency, on the other hand, is going to fall out of the sky at some point this year. And pretty much whether you're short term or long term or wherever it is, there are only a few cryptocurrencies that are immune from that, and they are barely immune, right? So there are certain currencies that are going to just start dropping that people are expecting to be their fortunes. Like what's that one? Bitcoin, huge drops this year. While Ethereum has these tiny little drops and then continues to go up, 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 and then these tiny little drops. So you can expect massive drops in these more powerful cryptocurrencies that people are betting their lives on. My gosh, around spring, you better keep your eyes wide open for Bitcoin dropping flat out the sky. Sorry to say. So some of you might want to be considering pulling out before April. Just saying. But it's interesting though, because you pull out and then that gives you another opportunity to get back in while it's super duper duper low. Or maybe you never had Bitcoin to begin with. So it gives those of us who don't, I don't, an opportunity to get back in. And then it'll rise again and be double that by this time in 2023. So crypto does weird things this year, just super weird. Do I believe the mark of the beast is an event that will take place? I believe that the mark of the beast is anything that you associate with fear, dominance, and control from outside of yourself. So that is a personal choice. And it has more to do with choosing to use a technological device that literally goes inside of your head just so that you can answer your phone. Yeah, I don't believe it's the vaccine. And I will directly just disagree with those who do, respectfully. I don't believe that the mark of the beast was, is, or ever will be associated with anything medical. It will be associated with something that people want that has to do with an implant to help them with their smartphone technologies. And eventually, people will literally be wanting to put that inside of their own heads, their own phone in their head, a chip in there for that. So don't put chips inside of yourself. That will be a conscious choice, not something that's forced upon you. It won't come in a vaccine. Nancy says, I just discovered canning easy with fermentation. Lacto. Yeah, fermenting your foods is an excellent choice for canning, especially sauerkraut, like the red cabbage. That would be a good idea. Someone said, I just finished watching The Matrix for the first time. You mean the first one? Because it all went downhill from there. And you may as well just not go watch. When they came out with this recent one, I was like, that's going to suck. And according to all my friends, it did. What do you see for Haiti and New York? I do keep an eye on New York. So many of my loved ones are there. I'm seeing some flooding for New York this year, but it's mostly for Pennsylvania and those areas kind of between the rivers there, around New Hope and up. So I guess that's a little bit different area than New York, but it goes up and it affects the bottom side of New York. New York gets way too much rain this year, so there is some flooding this year that you need to be aware of. And that's just from general too much rain. There's some tropical storms that are pretty crazy. So when they start to tell you, okay, you're going to have a bad tropical storm, it's not looking good, maybe you should listen. And if, you hear that and they're not going to have time to evacuate you. So when you know that the storm is coming, whatever tropical storms are going to hit this year for New York, it will be going in that direction of Pennsylvania going upwards. It's going to knock out the rivers. The rivers, if you live by them, just go ahead and get off. If you live by them, like on one, right? So I am concerned about areas of Pennsylvania, areas of New Jersey, and areas of lower New York this year with that. Haiti, I am concerned about a volcano. It's not terrible. It doesn't destroy things, but it's a tough recovery. It's a hard year for the world with earth changes. Let's see. Why do animals have to suffer? Why do plants? Why do humans? In the choosing of the free will, suffering is a part of that. What's going to happen in terms of love this year? People begin to realize that light isn't a metaphor. So when people say love and light, they begin to utilize light practically in their lives this year. So that's good because that's practice. That's a practice. And we all need a practice, whether we'd like to admit that to ourselves or not. New Zealand. Water. But only about, it's sort of the northeast and then the northwest corners of New Zealand. And that's not where it's suspected at all. So all the people that are concerned about water in southern New Zealand right now, that's not where it's coming. So there's some floods that drown out because they come at inappropriate times seasonally and they wash out people's crops. So I'm concerned about crop rot and things like that for flooding in New Zealand this year. Oh yeah. Jasmine says there's concern about Lake Mead in the western US drying up. Yeah. Locals can support the wildlife around the lake. Um, it's very, very interesting because some of the ways that people generate power go into effect because of a massive drought in that area this year, and that causes people to want to let that lake get a little bit lower, um, which is hard more for the wildlife around the area. But it does get even it's like 5 inches lower than it was, for 2021. It's 5 to 6 inches lower, for Lake Mead in the water levels this year in 2022. Quebec is under strong dictatorship. Do we start to unveil the truth? Yeah, yeah, but there's so many people willing to just hand over their power in Canada still that you're not gonna be expecting any uprising, you know? Sometimes we can sit here and we can say, and the US is the same, we want all the one percenters and all the ones that are out of power to go down, 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 right? Okay. Do you want a job? Right? You also still wanna go work for a massive government or a big company that's just kind of some fat cat sitting at the top of everything, and you wanna go work for a factory that does terrible things to the environment or so many things, and then you'll say, "Well, I need that to survive." That was some of the things that my guide said this year, "If you want corruption to end, stop supporting it." Right? So there's a big awareness of what we can do this year to get off of that crazy wheel of pain, the Druids call it when I talk to them, the wheel of corporate pain that goes round and round and round and affects third world countries and um, puts the US and Canada in this space of, just extreme negative light all the time. And we don't want our governments to be corrupt, yet we continue to support them in that way and in many, many, many ways. You want government corruption to not be in existence, but yet you live off of the funds that they give to you. Right? Get independent this year. Follow my guide's advice, please. It's time. Amber says, I've been feeling the need to dive into my spiritual path this year, and I'm wondering what I should do. I'm thinking of taking your classes to guide me, but it feels the same path as you, but it feels like the same path as you online. I'm not sure what you mean by that latter case, but you should follow what's calling you. But what do you mean by that sentence? But it feels like the same path as you online. Can you see anything as far as the Caribbean this year, in specific Puerto Rico? They have some floods this year that are pretty significant. Some of my friends that are now in spirit warned me about this year specifically. Um, but it's not Puerto Rico is so it's one of the rare places where the local community there is so unique. For those of you who understand Puerto Rico, you know what I mean. You guys are strong like oxen. You can recover from anything. So for those of you who are in Puerto Rico, despite some floods that are coming, it's not devastating. It is bad and it is recoverable. So stick together and you got this. Do you see anything regarding Chile? Yeah, there's some really bad earthquakes this year in Chile, right smack in the middle of the year. And it hits people in a big city and they don't expect it, knocks out power for 2 whole weeks. Recoverable, but not good because it's right in the middle of a city and it's right where people go to work and are commuting in their jobs, and you do lose some people this year. Earth is on fire this year, literally and figuratively. It's not exactly a metaphor. What about XRP? It's up and down. When it's good, and when it's bad, it drops down out of the sky, and this is in every 3-month cycles for 2022 with XRP. Good investment overall. Hang in there, XRP people. What about Switzerland? It gets colder during times that you shouldn't have cold, which is bad for crop. In Hungary, will it be easier this year? Slightly, but not much. Let's see. Still scrolling through your questions, the ones I've already seen and the ones I haven't. Cindy, I'd probably need a medical intuitive reading to look at that. It would be hard for me to read on YouTube. I'd hate to get that wrong. Um, is there an area in the US that is more neutral to major weather shifts in regards to being a good place to relocate? Um, the Western Slopes in Colorado, the Ozarks in Missouri, and the big lake straight in the middle of it. Missouri as a whole is a really good place to be right now. Indiana is a really good place to be right now in the rural areas. North Carolina is a really good place to be right now, around Maggie Valley and the Blue Ridge Parkway. South Carolina is a good place to be for, I'd say, maybe the next 13 years only. And then they're going to have a major, major flood from a hurricane. They're good, though, if you can get like way on the east of that, far away from like Myrtle Beach and Garden City and all of that. And Charleston, I don't know why you're always in your own little bubble, and for some reason you survive no matter how long or how many years. Charleston's a great place to be pretty much permanently. Must be a spiritual thing. You guys have some kind of mojo. I don't know what it is. Charleston's great. So there are some places that are really good. Wyoming's good at least for the next 13 years from that kind of stuff as well. Kansas is really good, except for the drought and the winds that are coming, and that is a big except. So you can expect some problems due to the fracking going on in certain areas there. It's affecting the totality of Kansas. But overall, it looks good, like it can recover from that in time, but you will still always have your droughts and your winds like you always have, versus it getting worse and being unlivable. You know what I mean? Where can I get crystals? Oh my gosh. I have a crystal class coming up, and I will share with you all my resources, but I like to get them from Sarametta Spiritual Wellness Center. They are in Missouri, and they're privately owned by two of my close friends, and I just really trust the crystals that they get. I also like to get my crystals from Penny Love. She has Soul Mama's Rock Shop. I believe that's on Etsy. Those are the two places. I just support people who I know get good crystals, and I support always people that, just know what they're doing. Is frequency healing and tuning forks a good way for me to assist humanity? If your soul calls, now it's time to do what your soul calls this year. And if that's where your calling is, you cannot ignore it. Anything on America's Pluto return? I believe you've asked this once before, but I'll cover it again. I'm not an astrologist. Check out Altazar he's over in my official Facebook community on Facebook. Go give him a tag and ask him what he thinks about it. Maybe he'll do a blog post for you. Who knows? He's an exceptional astrologer. What will happen with gaming crypto this year? Get in on that now if you want to make some money on that, because it's really weird, but that is the future of some of our younger people's money. I'm not going to be getting my hands in that, but my kids will. And when I'm old, my kids will have money because of some of the things that they know about that kind of stuff. I don't want to touch that with a 20-foot pole, because it's going to end up wrapping up in that energy of meta and all those sort of things that I feel like are just terrible for humanity. But gaming crypto is definitely, like, now it doesn't explode this year, but now's the time to get in before it does explode in a couple of years from now, because by a couple of years from now, it's going to start to get big, big, big and have some nice returns. Are silver and gold the best way to invest? Yes. and will be for a while. But think other metals other than silver and gold as well. When will you upload another Course of Love? I'm probably going to start them again tomorrow. Hold on, still scrolling. How do you see Louisiana faring with hurricanes this year? Not bad. It's not bad. Alabama has some flooding from a tropical storm this year, but it doesn't hit Louisiana as bad as it typically does. So you guys are in the clear for 2022, according to my guides at least. Gun violence in this country, unfortunately, gets twice as worse in 2022. I'm glad you asked the question, although I'm sad to impart that answer to you. It's not getting better, particularly in our school systems. Yeah. I'm strongly considering putting my kids back in like some sort of private charter schools as soon as I can find some, and then keeping them home for the majority of the time. It's a strong consideration. Is protesting a good way to show how many are against the vax, or does it keep up the division? Resistance creates persistence of the problem. When you fight against a problem, it gets worse, and that is spiritual universal law. And that's not changing, not in 2022, not ever. And there are only a few times when people even have enough power to protest, and that is when they are all interdependent amongst each other and independent of the governments that they are protesting. If society gets to that point, then protests could be a valid tool. Until then, they're going to use everything that you need from them against you. So think about that. Do you see anything remarkable for Alaska this year? Yeah, remarkable. Alaska has these incredible melting points for the Arctic ice. And initially that's good for the crop, but then it begins to flood and do some rotting, and it creates a massive tree disease that scientists have been worried about, but it's a different one this time, and one that begins to eat away at a lot of your pine trees. So that already happened not too long ago within the past few years, but it's going to happen again, but it's a different disease this time. And it has less to do with a beetle or some non-indigenous insect and more to do with rotting from flooding. Sally Ann says, I live on the earthquake line in Spain. Do you know what month the earthquake will be, please? I don't yet. You can keep asking me, when we have these Q&As, but I don't know when that will be. What do you get for Yellowstone? Well, it's still there in 2022. Hasn't blown up yet. Strange because we're due, but you're still good. Where can you find the Druid's Prayer? I put it on my Patreon recently. It's also on the many of the Druidic orders in the world. You'll find it, and it's in various Druid books. Earthquakes for California, there are 3 major ones in 1 year alone, but I'm more concerned about droughts and fires in California because even though the earthquakes are significant, they're not significant enough in the right areas that would destroy a city for 2022 in California. Oh, good, Nancy. Good for you. You're free. Use your time wisely. You can do you now. Do you see a hard freeze for Texas? It'll be in an unusual time. It'll be between April and May, but I do see another hard freeze and whiteout for Texas in 2022. Thank you for asking. Um, Think we've already talked about Florida. It's a lot less than the past few years. Hold on. How can I overcome fear of the corona jab? You need to learn to nothing the vaccine. If you have to take it, you need to get to that space where you view it like a vaccine that isn't helpful or harmful, but that it's basically like injecting a little bit of water or whatever. What like you have to get to that point in your belief systems, and I can't tell you how. That's really personal for everyone. But if you have fear, that's an issue with it. If you have to take it, right? When will the borders open for international travel? Well, it depends upon which country you're asking about. But right now, Canada's closed. The US, depending upon certain things, are closed. But if you're trying to get a visa, it's open. Other than that, I'm not so sure that it's full open. It's about 50-50 on that with your reason for coming. Hawaii seems to be safe this year. They do have a little bit of a problem with some flooding on one island only, and then there's about, I'd say, a smaller volcano that threatens eruption, and everyone's scared about it in 2022 for Hawaii, but it doesn't actually do it. It could be, Haleakala or something, some really sacred one too. It's not like just, you know, all the islands are sacred in Hawaii, but this one in particular is a place where people go to for great reason. The locals will know about it and they will be very concerned, but it doesn't end up doing a massive blow. It just sort of gets there almost and takes a few years slowly to blow. um, yeah, if you're moving to Ottawa this year, stay away from the flood zone areas. Absolutely, Barbara. Stay away from that because it's going to be major if you're talking about the Georgia area. Do you see our infrastructure here in New Orleans or southeastern Louisiana becoming any better? What infrastructure? That was very basic. I need a little bit more information of what you want to know. Because the government is still very corrupt in New Orleans, and I don't see changes for that in 2022. What's my favorite color? Green, like moss, like earthy green. Um, But there's a lot of open, closing to answer your question, David King, on international border opening. That's what I predict for 2022 is a bit of both. More closed than open. Uh, Anything galactic happening in 2022? There are several wars that have been actually fought off by the Galactic Council of Nine, intergalactic wars and things that have been prevented. So you should thank the councils for preventing that. So that's good. And that will continue to occur. But there will be no, what is that word you guys are using when aliens come down from the sky and show themselves? Disclosure. Nothing like that with ET disclosure in the way of a spaceship coming down and aliens walking off of it in 2022. EBS may not have to happen. What do you mean by that? What is EBS? Oh, look at that. It's Quantum Healers. I believe that's Candace Carl Goldman. You guys should check her out. She has an incredible process over at quantumhealers.com. Love her. Love her process for healing. She said, I just registered to our 2019 Tandem BQH session. Nice. Yeah, I'm feeling that too. We need to talk here soon. Oh, you re-listened to it. We need to talk here soon. I have some questions to ask you. Francis said I just had the J&J in July. Um, I don't know. That's such an individual thing with how vaccines affects each person. But I found that one to be one of the more milder ones. So I'm surprised that was the one you reacted to. Have you met the Council of 12? Yeah. There's all kind of councils, and they all have their own agendas. What I've learned is that the Council of 9 has the Earth agenda, and that's why I talk to them more so than any other council. Maine State, Maine's looking good. Way too cold this year, way too many freezes. Other than that, you're good, but you guys are used to that. I mean, it's Maine. It's not more so than what you would normally get, in other words. Trump will expose it. Will expose what? You had an acronym in there, but I don't know what it means. Keep in mind, my frequency is very different than that of all the whistleblowers. Like, I'm in a different space. Oh, emergency broadcast system. Okay. And you said Trump will expose it? How? What's there to be exposed? Like I said, like, I'm ignorant to some of this stuff because my frequency is not in that wavelength at all. I love you too, Candace. You're amazing. We need to check in soon. About Nasara and Gessara, you're just gonna have to give me more information because I haven't gotten any information from my guides about that being a thing for 2022 that would be significant. Will Puerto Rico be safe in 2022? They do have like some major water issues that when I say major, it's like a tropical storm, but they've had worse, much worse. Do you see any emergent medicines from the plant kingdom this year? Well, it depends upon who you're following because the plant medicine practitioners that have the newest medicines to share are the ones that you don't know. Yeah, they're not up there looking to get famous. The druids and plant medicines practitioners are very humble people who aren't really looking to be known. So you've got to go find them if you want those advances. You have to find us. Any major events in the next couple of weeks? Fires and major snows and ices. Well, Song, that's an interesting name. That one is your personal journey to find. Do you see the magnet reverse pole ship affecting the planet? It already is. It already is. And our lack of responsibility in being absolutely horrendous environmental and stewards of this earth is making it worse. So heed that warning. If you don't want it to get worse, take personal responsibility over how you live on earth, over your own, you know, ecological and biological footprint upon this planet, because it's not getting any easier with that. Thoughts on having all your money in the bank? Bank systems are still around for 2022, not closing, not even based upon financial disasters. What upcoming classes will you have in 2022 that you can share this now? Oh my gosh. The crystal class is the biggest one the huge class that I'm going to be doing in 2022, the 5 top rituals for plant medicine with crystals, the 5 top rituals for spiritual development medicine and awakening with crystals, the 5 top rituals for physical and emotional healing with crystals as well. And just a general overall, how can crystals be medicinal? That's what this class is about on February the 6th coming up. PamelaAaralyn.com. If you're a patron, if you're at patreon.com, you're a member of that community, you get 30% off of that one. But you have to message us to get the code. So that's coming. I'm starting my Druidic school this year. Hopefully by the spring, they will be in modules of 3 months at a time. All right. And they are affordable, particularly compared to private mentorship. So there will be Druidic initiations this year. There will be a lot of plant medicine classes this year as well. That'll be in modules for 3 months at a time. And you will have one live class with me and one recorded one that you get. And you get the recordings for both of them. So one to learn and then one to practice and ask questions. And they will come with links, resources, and PDFs. So that's what's big for this year, is just learning in a different way together that can be more financially efficient for people right now, because all of us are going through hard times, me included. So we all have to learn in a way that's efficient, because so many people work hard and don't have the time. So you can do those classes at your own pace. They're self-paced versus you have to be there, which is what I normally do, right? So that's good. And all the classes this year are going to be completely self-paced. And that's considering the fact that we're about to go into a major lockdown and we will need to go into some sacred spirituality together, sacred rituals, sacred initiations. This whole year is about preparing for all the things that I have shared with you today in different ways in your spiritual practice and in your practical spiritual practice of how you live your life on earth, right? Yep. Is there anything significant about 2022? Yes. The theme for 2022 is minimalizing your life, becoming an environmental steward of earth and of your own body, mind, temple, as well as overall simplicity, simplifying, minimalizing. That's the theme for 2022. All right. All right. It's about time to close up. I'll probably take a couple more questions. I had a vision that JT will be arrested again. What's up with these acronyms and little who is that? Remember, my frequency is I'm kind of in my own little world. I don't know all these things. So sometimes you have to spell it out to me because I don't know who that is. I don't know if you discussed it when all the COVID wearing a mask and stuff goes away. Don't hold your breath. Not going anywhere anytime soon. Remember, we asked for a timeout from the corporate greed in our governments, in our corporations, in the way the earth runs. And this is what's changing that. Use this time to change your lives. Okay. That's a big message I got for 2022. Stop expecting to go back to normal or to create a new normal. All that kind of stuff. This isn't about normal. Nothing's normal anymore. You know, becoming independent of that so that you don't depend upon anybody but your local environment, who's under your roof and your local neighborhood. All right. Get local. Did you say memorizing? No, minimalizing. Sorry, I was trying to rush myself. Yeah. Okay, guys. As someone said, I can't believe I used to be in the whistleblowing world. I just don't have time for that. My frequency is somewhere else completely. And it is about Mother Earth. It is about all of you. It is about the beautiful people here listening today. It's about you. It's about us. It's about our families. It's about our children. It's about our pets. That's my frequency, by the way. Oh, by the way, speaking of pets, I just came out with a new reading. Not that it's a new gift. The gift's been around since I was a kid. And I've been doing it privately, but I decided to publicize it by offering pet readings now. So if you bring your pet with you, or if you can't and you just want to bring a photo, you can talk to the higher self of your pet to ask behavioral questions, health questions, all sorts of stuff. And your pet just talks right back, just like you and I are talking right now. That's how they talk to me. So I am dominantly a telepath. And it doesn't matter if it's plants, animals, or humans, I hear and see everything. So that's a lot of fun. And that would be whether it would be your horses or whether it is your domestic pets or whether it's just a pet that's on your property that you want to get closer to, like an owl totem, trying to speak to you. That pet there, a wild one, you know. I believe they think of us as pets, some of the pets out there. Are not really, they're not the non-domesticated animals think of us as the pets. It's very interesting. So that's up on the website now as well. I can't wait to be doing more of that work. It just got to the point where the medical intuition and the pets, it becomes like so much of my day now that I just had to go ahead and make it official. Okay, yes, I'm a pet reader. You guys already know I do it, but now you actually know. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, hey, Christina. Haven't seen you in ages. How's your baby? Hey, Brock. Hi, David. Hi, Rose. Hi, Barbara. So many people I know here today. Thank you for joining me. I believe that's all that I'm going to say about 2022. I can say that it is a better year than last year, and it's certainly better than 2020. So let's keep in the positive about it. And I will see you this week for your Patreon classes, and I will see you on February the 6th for the 5 ritual practices of healing with crystals. All right. I'll see you soon. Have a good one. Bye.